They say the most peaceful neighborhoods are the ones where nothing ever happens. That's a comforting myth. The real scandals almost always bloom where the grass is manicured to perfection, the driveways gleam, and every mailbox stands in perfect alignment. Our street looked like it had been staged for a luxury real estate ad until the morning. The red and blue lights shattered the illusion. A single police cruiser sat parked along the curb, its lights pulsing silently against the manicured boxwood hedges and the brass house numbers. The officers weren't in a hurry. They moved with quiet purpose, crossing the flagstone paths and stepping around decorative wreaths and seasonal planters until they reached the house they wanted. From my living room window, I watched them approach the front door of the Henderson place. A moment later, they stepped back out with the teenage boy between them. Handcuffs clicked into place. He fought at first, jerking his shoulders, twisting his wrists, shaking his head violently, but the resistance didn't last long. His body sagged. His chin dropped to his chest. He stopped struggling. His mother, Karen Henderson, burst onto the porch behind them. Her voice cracked the morning air sharp, raw, almost hysterical. "This is harassment," she shouted. "My son has immunity. You have no right to touch him." The sergeant never broke stride. He simply adjusted the duty belt at his waist and answered in the same calm tone he might use to order coffee. "Ma'am, vandalism is vandalism. Doesn't matter whose child it is." Karen's face flushed a deep, angry crimson. She stood there perfectly dressed, perfectly composed until that moment, suddenly exposed and powerless before the entire street. Neighbors had begun to appear at windows and front doors, watching in silence. She knew. Somewhere beneath the outrage, she had known this day was coming. Then her gaze swung across the road and locked onto my house. Onto me. The look she gave me felt like an accusation, as though I had personally dialed the police and handed them the evidence. But let's back up. My name is Jake Morrison. 3 months earlier, I had moved here looking for exactly what the brochures promised: peace, quiet, and a place to finally put down roots. I'm a software engineer. I work remotely. For years, I bounced between cramped apartments and short-term rentals. When I finally saved enough for a down payment, this house felt like a small miracle tucked at the quiet end of the cul-de-sac, bordered by mature trees and blessed silence. I had no idea the neighborhood was ruled by an HOA that operated more like a private kingdom than a community board, and I had no idea I would soon become enemy number one to its undisputed queen, Karen Henderson. Karen was in her early 40s and dressed every day as though she were about to chair a board meeting. Starched blouses, tailored skirts, pearl studs, hair smoothed into submission. She carried herself with the certainty of someone who had never once questioned her own authority, and for good reason. She had been HOA president for 6 uninterrupted years. Her 17-year-old son, Derek, was tall, sullen, and talented at breaking things: windows, rules, other people's patience. Whenever his name came up in conversation, Karen's mouth would tighten into a thin line, as though even hearing it cost her something. From the moment my moving truck pulled away, she made her position unmistakable. Newcomers were suspect. Newcomers who didn't immediately fall in line were a problem. I parked my Honda Civic in the driveway every evening straight, within the lines, washed on Saturdays. I mowed the lawn before it needed it and edged the sidewalk with care. 2 days after I closed on the house, she appeared on my porch, clipboard pressed to her chest like a shield, smile bright and practiced. "Mr. Morrison," she began, "we need to discuss the positioning of your vehicle." I blinked. "It's in my driveway, correct?" she said, tapping her pen once against the clipboard. "But it's angled ever so slightly. That breaks the visual continuity of the street. We have standards." I glanced past her shoulder. In the Henderson driveway sat Derek's pickup, half on the lawn, tires caked with dried mud, one headlight smashed and unreplaced. I said nothing. "Not then." It began with the car. Then it was the placement of the trash bins 1 inch too close to the curb. Then, the color of the mulch in my flower beds apparently too dark. The complaints arrived in polite, typed notes slipped into my mailbox, each one signed with her neat, looping signature, Karen Henderson didn't just enforce the rules, she believed she was the rule. They claimed my flower beds violated HOA guidelines, the colors were inappropriate, the spacing non-compliant, and the height of the blooms disruptive to street uniformity. One evening, I caught her standing at the edge of my property line, phone raised, snapping photos of my mailbox in the fading light. That was the moment I decided enough was enough. The next day, I installed 4 high-resolution security cameras, 2 covering the driveway, 1 on the porch, and 1 angled toward the street. It wasn't paranoia, it was self-preservation. Then came the night I'll never forget. A sharp, unmistakable crash tore through the silence around 1:17 a.m., glass exploding. I bolted out of bed, heart hammering, and ran to the front window just in time to see a dark figure sprinting across my lawn and disappearing into the shadows. My car, the windshield was a shattered spiderweb. Deep gouges ran across the hood, and in bright, dripping red spray paint, someone had scrawled a single word. Out. I didn't need to guess who. The cameras had caught everything. Hoodie up. Yes, but the streetlight hit his face perfectly. Derek Henderson. Clear as daylight, unmistakable. The following morning, I didn't call Karen. I didn't knock on her door. I dialed the non-emergency police line and reported criminal mischief and property damage. I sent them the time-stamped footage within the hour. That's what brought the cruiser to the curb that crisp morning. Karen exploded onto the scene the second the officers led Derek out in cuffs. We handle these matters internally, she screamed, voice shrill enough to echo off the houses. You went behind my back. This is a community issue, not a police matter. The officer didn't flinch. A crime is a crime, ma'am. Doesn't matter who's involved. The moment the patrol car pulled away with Derek in the back seat, Karen spun toward my house. Her face was scarlet, trembling with fury. But the story wasn't finished. Word spread fast. Neighbors who had stayed quiet for years began to approach me quietly at first, then in a steady stream. They told me things Karen had done that I'd never imagined. Fining an elderly couple $500 because their wheelchair ramp was an eyesore and hadn't been pre-approved. Issuing warnings to a family for stringing colored Christmas lights white only, she insisted. Citing another household for a simple, happy 8th birthday banner stretched across their porch for one afternoon. HOA immunity. The phrase floated around like gospel whenever someone questioned her. Except it had never existed. Not in the bylaws. Not in state law. Karen had simply repeated it so often that people started believing it. She had pushed every boundary because, until now, no one had pushed back. The next emergency community meeting called by petition. Not by her. The room was packed. I stood at the front, projector on, and played the footage, every second of Derek's late-night visit, every spray paint stroke. Then I showed side-by-side stills, his truck parked crooked on their lawn for months, unreported. My car angled 2 degrees last summer, cited within 48 hours. The hypocrisy landed like a slap. One by one, others rose. They shared their fines, their warnings, their quiet humiliations. Karen sat rigid in the front row, arms crossed so tightly her knuckles were white. She tried to interrupt, tried to gavel the conversation back under her control. No one recognized her authority anymore. The board voted 4-0. Karen Henderson was removed as HOA president, effective immediately, her face drained of color. You can't do this, she whispered. This community, it's mine. It wasn't. Not anymore. Derek's hearing came 3 weeks later. The judge reviewed the video, the police report, and the damage estimates. Karen stood beside her son and offered every excuse in the book. Teenage stress, unclear rules, provocation from that new neighbor. The judge wasn't persuaded. Derek received 6 months probation, 100 hours of community service, $3,400 in restitution, and court costs. Karen's jaw fell open. We don't have that kind of money, she said. The judge leaned forward. Then perhaps you'll think twice the next time your son decides to destroy someone else's property. She tried to fight the HOA board's decision, filed a formal complaint, claimed procedural violations. It went nowhere. She appealed to the state oversight board. Denied again. Then the neighbors started comparing notes. Scratched paint on cars parked overnight. Smashed planters. Keyed mailboxes. Over the years, Derek's handiwork added up. The documented damages totaled more than $27,000. Karen could scrape together $12,000 to cover the rest. She listed the house for sale. At her final community meeting, she sat in the very last row, silent, eyes fixed on the floor, and then the unexpected happened. Nominations opened for the vacant president position. My name was put forward, seconded by 3 different households. When the vote passed unanimously, Karen shot to her feet. "This is what you wanted," she hissed, voice shaking. "You planned every step of this." I met her gaze evenly. "No, Karen, you did this." Security walked her out. Quietly. No scene. Derek finished his community service pulling weeds and planting flowers in the public gardens he had once helped ruin while as the newly appointed community service coordinator for the neighborhood, signed off on his hours. 6 months later, the for sale sign came down. The house sold. I still park my Honda perfectly straight every night. The lawn stays neat. The mailbox is regulation black. The neighborhood is finally quiet. The last update I heard, Derek paid the full $3,400 restitution, plus an extra $500 in court fees. When the final amount was announced, Karen said nothing, but her face said everything. Sometimes justice doesn't arrive with fireworks or shouting. It arrives in the soft, steady sound of silence after years of noise. If you enjoyed watching an overbearing HOA empire finally collapse and real accountability take its place, then you'll love the stories we share every week. True neighborhood drama, unexpected twists, and endings that actually feel satisfying. So hit that subscribe button. Drop a thumbs up if karma hit the spot today. And ring the bell so you never miss the next chapter of community chaos turned justice.